Good afternoon, welcome everyone for this talk by Dr. Hema Goonatilake on historical relations between Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia. So, traditional way of welcoming somebody in the Sinhalese language, Dr. Hema Goonatilake is from Sri Lanka, is to say Ayubowan. Yes, so we welcome Dr. Hema Goonatilake to the CSWR. Thank you. So I will just briefly introduce Dr. Hema Goonatilake. I met Dr. Hema Goonatilake for the first time in 2011 in a conference actually organized by the Royal Asiatic Society of Sri Lanka, which is the oldest academic organization in the country, nearly 150 or 60 years, 68 years old. Oldest. Yes, so she is the editor of that journal. And they organized a conference in 2011. I presented a paper there. That's how I met her. Actually, it was a very interesting meeting because when I saw her at the panel for the philosophy section, she was shouting at all the Buddhist monks because the time was up, but nobody is going there because they come from all over Sri Lanka, all different parts of Sri Lanka, and they want to have some greetings, exchanging greetings. So she was shouting at that. So I actually asked, who is this lady shouting at all the Buddhist monks? But everybody was smiling, so she was like a guardian, like a motherly figure to all the monks. So she can shout at them and everybody is smiling, nobody is sad about it. Yes. So I will briefly tell about Dr. Hema Goonatilake's academic background and some of her achievements and professional experiences. Dr. Hema Goonatilake received her PhD in Buddhist Studies from the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. She is proficient in Sinhala, English, German, Pali, Sanskrit, Khmer, that is the Cambodian language, and also French. Professionally, she started her career as a senior faculty member at the University of Kelaniya, one of the major universities in Sri Lanka, until she joined the United Nations, New York, and Cambodia as a gender expert. Subsequently, she served as the senior advisor to the government of Cambodia in university education and Buddhist affairs. She helped revive the Cambodian academic structure by rejuvenating the once illustrious Buddhist Institute, re-establishing the Buddhist University, and instituting the annual conference on Cambodian studies. For her services in Cambodia, she was awarded the title Sahamitra, the highest honor given to foreigners. She served as a member of the Research Committee on Sociology of Religion of the International Sociological Association. She was the president of Social Sciences of the Sri Lanka Association of Advancement of Science and was the editor of the association. So one of the major reasons why Sri Lanka is very well known is the tsunami 2004, which was a very bad experience for the country. So during that time, she was very active as a social activist also. So after the tsunami, she formed a Red Lotus humanitarian assistance organization after convening an international conference of 23 countries in March 2005. The organization is still very active from that time until now, initiating a lot of relief, rehabilitation, and reconstruction work, and so on. She worked as a women activist for many years, serving as the founders and co-founders of many organizations, this nationally and internationally. In many countries such as Greece, USA, Norway, she was a board member of the International World University Service, Geneva. Buddhist nuns' ordination in Sri Lanka was almost dead in modern times. Dr. Hema Goonatilake played the main role in reviving the nuns' order in modern times, beginning in the 80s. And she became a very controversial figure in the media at that time. She had to fight a lot against the conventional views in order to re-establish the women's organization, Buddhist, we call them Bhikshuni organizations, the nuns or organization. She has published extensively on subjects and issues related to gender, religion, Buddhist studies. So there are a lot of academic publications available in the website also. So that's just a brief introduction of Dr. Hema Goonatilake, and I hope she will give us a very illuminating and enlightening experience here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I feel flattered, and at the same time, I feel a little embarrassed. Now, I'm so pleased to be here, and I must thank first the organizers, initially Venerable Upali, then Professor Anne Monius, Director of CSWR, Corey O'Brien, co-director, Alexis, I met her in the morning, and Professor Vila Mila, that you, acting coordinator in Buddhist Ministry Initiative. So I'm very pleased to be here, and my talk is very much a general one because I didn't know where to pitch. So I guess since we have 2 hours, what do you prefer? For me to go on till the very end, or for you to intervene in between if there is any questions, etc.? I'm ready for anything. Please.
Give your talk and then have Q&A at the end.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Okay, then so it was the Indians. I start Indian contacts with Southeast Asia because often we look Indian, Sri Lankans, but we are very different, very, very different. We look Indian, but if you go to India and Sri Lanka, you will see the difference if you visit both countries. So it was the Indians, I have put inverted commas because the entire region was Indian, so to say, who were first in contact with Southeast Asia. Brahmanism was the first belief system that entered the region. You should correct me if I'm wrong. Here is a Hindu expert. And Cambodia was the first empire in the region, covering the central part of present-day Thailand, parts of Vietnam, and present-day Laos. Cambodian origin by the 1st century Common Era indicates the Indian influence in the region. Story of Indian Prince Kaundinya arriving and subduing Soma, the female inhabitant in the region. In fact, the very origin, in Sri Lankan origin also is very similar to this. A prince coming from India and subduing the local lady, and then it becomes Sri Lanka. Not Sri Lanka, Singhale. The old name for Sri Lanka is Singhale, Sinhala, the name of our language, and up to about it was used up to about the 10th century onwards, or 10th century, also with Lanka, sometimes Singhale, and later the British made it Ceylon. The French and the British, the French did not come to Sri Lanka, but the British made it Ceylon, and later in 1950s it became Sri Lanka. So the meaning is hidden. Singhale is the real meaning. Sinhala means the language, and I'm a Sinhalese, ethnicity. But there are Tamils, Sinhalese, Tamils, Muslims in Sri Lanka. Sinhala the majority, and the Tamils and the Muslims, major communities. So Brahmin culture and civilization pervaded the entire region. By the 7th to 9th centuries, Mahayanism took over, replacing the Hindu governance and culture, but remained the religion of the royalty and other elite groups. This is very important. Royalty and other elite groups, Brahmanism, was the religion, Brahmanism as well as Mahayanism, Mahayana Buddhism. Also, it was the religion of the royalty and the elite groups, never the common people. The common people would have had animism and other belief systems. So it was never a kind of a common religion until Theravada Buddhism came in. However, Ganesh, Vishnu and other Hindu gods and goddesses remain up to now as public symbols. That is amazing. Buddhism, Cambodia is about 98% Buddhist, Theravada Buddhist, like Burma much less because of the animistic religions, etc. And Thailand is so. But you see in Thailand, Burma, Laos, Cambodia, all these countries still, Vishnu, Ganesh, especially Vishnu and Ganesh, they are displayed as symbols, public symbols on the streets, etc. Not a single Buddha statue you see in Thailand, Cambodia and Laos in public space, outside. Only in Sri Lanka you see that. So you have to ask why. Why is that? In Sri Lanka you get a lot of Buddha statues displayed on the streets. That phenomenon also took place as a kind of a, so to say, as a kind of a reaction to the feelings against Buddhism, which were coming up, say, in the 50s and when we were children, I remember, 50s or so, or later 60s, etc. Until then, they were not the Buddhist statues are not displayed so often. But in Cambodia, Laos, Burma, etc., still you find Ganesh, Vishnu, and even if you once a Buddhist monk whom I had invited, a Sri Lankan Buddhist monk, had taken huge Buddha image to be donated to the Buddhist institute that I was associated with, and they didn't know what to do with, where to put it, you see, because they are not used to it. And so I think that mentality or that is hard ingrained in them and fairly difficult to change. That is what they are. Mahayana replaced by Theravada from Sri Lanka. I heard from Upali Shaman that many of you are not familiar with Theravada. Mostly you are more familiar with Mahayana. So Theravada comes from Thera, a sect, Thera sect, very much developed in Sri Lanka. Thera. It also has been suggested that therapy, the word therapy, the English word, Latin word, etc., came from Thera, the stability. Thera means stability, sthira. In Sanskrit, it is. Are there any Sanskrit scholars here? Sthira, sthavara, sthira, Thera. And so it developed in Sri Lanka very much, the whole Theravada sect. And I'm saying this because you are not too familiar with Theravada Buddhism. So Theravada Buddhism, for the first time, South Asian spread to all social strata, from the royalty to the common people. That is the difference that made in Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. It spread to the common people. In Cambodia, I lived in Cambodia for 10 years. And people have given various interpretations for this, you see, why this happened. Mahayanism never took hold, meaning it was popular only with the royalty and the elite. The first Hinduism, to all these countries came Hinduism first. All these countries means except Sri Lanka. All Southeast Asian countries, Cambodia, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, all these countries, Hinduism came first, and then came Mahayanism. But still, they served as the religion of the elite and the royalty. not the common people. Only Theravada spread among the common people. It appealed to them, Theravada. And I think not only appealing, I think also the way the patrons, the kings went about it, I guess. So the kings took to it first, because the way they were introduced, they were all to all these countries, Theravada Buddhism was introduced by Sri Lanka. So that's the difference. Sri Lankan monks introduced the Theravada Buddhism, practitioners, so to say. And monks introduced this, and then the kings first became the patrons of the religion, and then the Hinduism, Mahayanism and Hinduism, the same thing happened. But why it went to the common people? I think because my own view is that the monks went round the country, meeting the people. Monks belong to the people, so to say. Sangha means getting together. And meeting Sangha, the monks went to the people and talked with them and propagated them, more than kind of converting. But Buddhism has never been known to convert people. That is very well established. I'm not going to discuss that. And so, come and see is the approach. Come and see for yourself. In fact, the Buddha, once the Buddha said when people were converting to Buddhism, when they were becoming Buddhists, especially Brahmins were becoming Buddhists, well-known Brahmanas were become Buddhists, they said, please think twice. You should not give up your religion. Think about it. Think about it. One should not give up one's religion. Asoka is another person. Dharma Ashoka, the Emperor Ashoka of India, 3rd century BC. And one should not give up one's religion. See for you. So the whole ehi passiko in Pali they say. Ehi passiko, come and see is the approach. So, now Sri Lanka had some special advantages when it came to India. Asoka's son Mahinda introduced Buddhism, Buddha's message. You can't call it Buddhism. The word was coined, I guess, by the English-speaking communities. Buddha's message in the 3rd century Common Era, and writing down of the Tripitaka in the 1st century made Sri Lanka the custodian of Theravada Buddhism. It was written down, and the amazing story of writing down the Tripitaka. Why did they think of writing down the Tripitaka in the 1st century BC? Because the monks, the Theravada was going as a kind, they were transmitting the message word by mouth. One, just memorizing, and then the second, they were called bhanakas in Pali. Bhanakas, speakers. Bhanakas means preachers, or speaker is better. And the message was transmitted by people, by the monks. But later, in Sri Lanka, there were problems with a situation that the people were dying and of disease, etc., and epidemic. And then the monks thought that they should write down. And that is why it was written down in the 1st century BCE. And fortunately, it is there. If it was not written down, things would have been very difficult, very hard to see. At least from the 6th century BC to the 1st century, the additions, and of course Sri Lanka monks I have no time to go into that. Monks have distorted various things to suit their political agenda, especially in terms of women. The original, what was not probably there, very equality kind of thing during the Buddha's time, when the monks Sri Lankan monks wrote it down. Certain negative things against women have crept into the canon. That is quite well known. Sinhala bhikkhus, the Sri Lankan bhikkhus, introduced Theravada form of ordination into Southeast Asia, taught Pali, and the canon or the Tripitaka was transmitted in Pali. Pali means, Pali, so to say, I would say Buddha spoke something very similar to probably Pali during that time, kind of a dialect, but people could understand. Now, anybody of you who has done Pali would be able to understand Asoka, edicts of Emperor Asoka. A lot of common words are there, so like that. And they taught Pali, the lingua franca of the Buddhist world, then and propagated the Tripitaka. And it is also, I say somewhere later, they taught Pali what language? Pali has no language, right? Sanskrit has language, as a script. Sanskrit has Devanagari script. Pali has no script at all. Pali we write in our own language. So if it is written in England, I studied Pali, in England in Roman script, in Sri Lanka in Sinhala script, in Thai, Thailand, there was a huge problem in Thailand because it's a nasal language. They could not write down Pali well. And later, of course, Thai, so to say, Thai became, the Thai language entered much later. And they taught Pali, the monks who introduced Tripitaka, the canon, taught Pali in all these countries, Burma, Thailand, Cambodia, in Sinhala script. Luce has discussed this fairly well. And so that is significant. And Myanmar, I think I discuss later what happened in Myanmar, first in Mon language, but first in Sinhala and then to Mon language and then to Burmese. So Anuradhapura is our first capital of Sri Lanka from about the 600 BCE, from the time of the introduction of Buddhism up to about the 10th, 11th centuries. Anuradhapura became a center of Buddhist culture. By the 7th, 8th centuries, Anuradhapura was being facilitated by Sri Lanka's position in the Indian Ocean. We had that big positive effect for us, fortunately. Being in the Indian Ocean was a center of trade and maritime activity. Travelers on the sea route and also on the land route to Southeast Asia and East Asia, up to China, stopped over in Anuradhapura. So Anuradhapura was a stopover place for travelers, Buddhist or otherwise. Sri Lankan monks and nuns at monastic centers. We had 3 monastic centers, Mahavihara, Abhayagiri, and Jetavana, all in Anuradhapura, played a significant role in the propagation of Buddhism in Asia. They were like universities, so to say, because different sections were taken by different, still like Nalanda University, and so the same type, university type. And of course students are very few, maybe 7, 8 students for each class, so to say, for each section, to discuss each issue. Now I go to the other areas that I'm not going to discuss at length. Sri Lanka influence on Champa, now it is Vietnam. A Buddha statue known as Don Duong Buddha image from Champa, now it is displayed in the Ho Chi Minh Museum. has also been identified Basilie to belong to the art of 4th century of Anuradhapura. This is the statue. It was found elsewhere. I can't remember. I have been to that place on the way, but I forget the name of the place. Now it is in the Ho Chi Minh Museum. Where is Sri Lankan Buddha statue, with especially the robe, the way the robe is worn, etc., etc. Where is Sri Lankan? Then Sri Lanka also had influence on Java. There's a Abhayagiri Vihar of Sinhala monks at Anuradhapura, found in central Java, dated to 7th century. And it says Abhayagiri Vihara. It has been suggested that Borobudur was probably designed also by Sinhalese monks from Abhayagiri. Now, when you see the Borobudur, typical Sinhala Cheti, Sinhala top, Sinhala Cheti, Sinhala Dagaba, typical, very typical. Then, generally, all these Sri Lankan monks who went around to Southeast Asia, they founded introduced forms of sculpture, architecture, literature, and painting, and the new civilization. Southeast Asian bhikkhus learned the Pali Tripitaka, Pali Canon, adhered to the Theravada form of ordination. In all these countries, the ordination tradition came from Sri Lanka. That is a very significant thing in Buddhism, the ordination tradition, the way you are ordained, the way the monks are ordained. And the Southeast Asian countries, they were influenced, but they created their own forms of art, architecture, and literature, painting, etc., with a local flavor. Southeast Asian history, now all histories in Southeast Asia, in Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, historiography, and Laos are modeled after the Sri Lankan chronicle Mahavansa. We had a chronicle in the 4th century, written in the 4th century, called the Deepavansa, chronicle of the island. Deepa is the island. Now the Mahavansa is the great chronicle, written in the 5th century. And this kind of Vansa lineage, Vansa means the meaning is lineage, went to these Southeast Asian countries. And in Myanmar, one is Mahasambhata Vansa. What I'm trying to say is all the historical chronicles, Burma, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, all the historical chronicles start with the Mahavansa story. Meaning, the Mahavansa is the great chronicle or the Deepavansa in Sri Lanka, written in Sri Lanka, as I said, 4th century and later in the 5th century. They start with the Buddha's visit to Sri Lanka. 3 visits by Buddha. And then the history. This king in the 3rd century BC and the Thera Mahinda introducing Buddhism to Sri Lanka. Theri Sangamitta, the bhikkhuni, the nun, his sister. Sangamitta came and introduced the nun's ordination to Sri Lanka. All this story goes in all the historical chronicles in Southeast Asia. So this is a typical. So this is historiography starts with the Mahavansa. Now I come to Myanmar. One country. Why I took Myanmar is short. I'm going to make it short. Thailand. I should have probably taken Thailand first, but I want to get this out of the way. Myanmar, and go to Thailand because Thailand is a very long one. Then Vijaybahu I, our king in the 11th century, requested the first historical king, Anavrata, for assistance to defeat the Cholas who had devastated Sri Lanka. Cholas are the Tamils from South India. they have a very long history in South India. From about the 3rd century BC, please correct me, you are the expert.
It's a long story.
3rd century BC up to about the 11th century, Cholas ruled in South India. So they have a very long history. And they went to Cambodia, the Cambodian Angkor Wat and all those things like that. And so they came to Sri Lanka in the 11th century, of course, as invaders. What does a country do when some people come as invaders? You have to fight them and get rid of them. So they Cholas came as invaders and devastated Sri Lanka. Then Sri Lanka appealed to Myanmar, to the Myanmar king, for help. And then later, even before the help came, he also wanted the monks to restore the order, because the total decline of the Sangha, the Sasana, the order, the Buddhist order. So the Sri Lankan king requested the Myanmar king, Sri Lanka monks found that, Sri Lanka king found that some monks who had fled to Myanmar during the Chola period, Chola problems, came back and restored the order, restored the Sangha in Sri Lanka. So, then the sacred tooth relic is a kind of a, what shall I say? It was a kind of thing for all Southeast Asian countries. They all wanted to own the sacred tooth relic. Myanmar, Cambodia, especially Myanmar and Cambodia, Thailand also little. But those two countries, especially Myanmar, wanted to own the tooth relic. So the king, these are semi-mythical, but the sites are there, all the sites where all these things happen are there. That's why I call semi-mythical. Because Indian King Anavada requested for the sacred tooth relic in Sri Lanka. You know about the sacred tooth relic in Sri Lanka, right? No? Okay. Please, tell me. Now the Buddha's tooth, we happen to, that is also, it is very well recorded, very well recorded. And the places are there, everything is there, very well recorded. In the 4th century, it was there in India, and Princess Hema and Danta means tooth, those names, Hema. The name of the princess was Hema, and the prince was Danta means the tooth, right? Probably he would have got the name after that. And the king of that regional king dispatched, because there were problems in the country, so they dispatched the tooth relic to Sri Lanka through this prince and the princess. And the princess apparently had hidden this in the hair. So she has a hair like this, no one would see that there's anything, a bushy hair after all, bushy hair hidden in her hair. She brought the tooth relic. And all that is very well recorded, in the sense that the road she took, how she got off the ship and went and all that. And so the sacred tooth relic remained in Sri Lanka, and that is our proudest possession in the country. And if anybody wants to go to Sri Lanka, any Buddhist, so to say, a good Buddhist, they would say, I want to go to Sri Lanka to see the tooth relic. That is what the Tibetan Dalai Lama told me, that he requested me, I met him 3 times, And he requested me somehow to bring him to Sri Lanka to see the tooth relic, but I could not do it because of the political system, because it's the politics involved. Dalai Lama and China, we have close relations with China, Sri Lankan government, so they never dream of. I tried a lot. So this king, Anavrata, the first historical king, wanted the tooth relics from the thing. So the king of Sri Lanka sent a replica of the tooth relic. So the Burmese king wanted more replicas, so he wished for more replicas, I think 3 replicas. And this is, in Myanmar, are there any Myanmar experts here? I heard Myanmar and Burma. Yes, now this is the Shwesigon Pagoda in the 11th century. So, replica of the tooth relic was enshrined in this Shwesigon Pagoda. And so he enshrined in 4 places. I'm just showing another one. This is another replica of the tooth relic enshrined here. 4 places. Those places are there. I visited all those 4 places. There is some kind of little monument there. This Laukananda. This is apparently a place where the vessels from Sri Lanka, Ramanya Desa and Arakan anchored earlier. It was an old harbour, Laukananda. So this thing was built at this old harbour. So Myanmar, the second king, King Chansita, revised the canon based on the Sinhala version, because by that time, during the first king's period, canon had come to Sri Lanka, to Myanmar. Yes, during this Vijayabahu's time, it had come, and this king, in the 11th century, revised the canon based on the Sinhala version. He had by then got a incomplete canon from Taton in Burma, and so he got the Sinhala monks and all that, and then revised. Then Chansita's son, this king's son Rajakumar, mastered Pali and the Tripitaka, the canon, in Sinhala script under the guidance of Sinhala bhikkhus. You can see that in how he mastered it, this prince, how he mastered it. This is the place where he has illustrated his paintings. He has got the paintings done. This is for those of you who have been to Myanmar, you know Kubyao Chi temple, how it illustrates the Sri Lankan history. Built in 1113 by Rajakumar, that King Chansita's son. And Chansit, as the king was dying, the son built this temple and dedicated to his father. And son painted, got a number of paintings, all episodes from the Sri Lanka Mahavansa. I told you our chronicle, the Mahavansa, great chronicle, our historical chronicle, episodes from and painted in the temple. So by that time, before this time, by 11th century, there were several books, and during this time also there was a library. Elsewhere I have discussed that, written about the library system. And still some stones are there in that library. So the books that were brought from Sri Lanka, lot of books, lot of texts, in addition to the canon, other texts. So Mahavansa is one of those texts, and they mastered. And here, this is the place, this temple, built in the 1110 period. And this Mahavansa illustrations, Mahavansa is our historical chronicle. Illustrations are this continuous narration, like what you get in cartoons now, one after the other type of thing. Now, I'm just giving a few pictures from this temple. This is the meeting of Emperor Asoka's son Mahinda with our king Devanampiyatissa. Devanampiyatissa, king and the emperor, and inside is like a temple inside. No temples were there at the time. To denote the temple, they have a kind of that thing inside. And a lot of other things, how outside is the, how the first here, here the description is given outside, the kind of the dedication of the first monastery, etc. I'm skipping all that. This was the Sri Lankan hero king Duttagamini. Duttagamini. And his elephant. And you see a little sketch of the Duttagamini as well. He is the Sri Lankan hero. And his king, his elephant is Kandula. This is the 2nd century. This is the 3rd century BC. This is the 2nd century BC. This is the Tamil king Elara. This hero king's rival, Chola. The hero, Sinhala hero, Sri Lankan king hero Duttagamini chased away, fought with Elara and chased away. But if you read our Sri Lankan chronicle, you'll be surprised. There's a great deal of attention given to this Elara king, his rival Elara. And this is the Tamil king. And this is actually a great deal of attention when I say, even when Elara died, he fought in, he killed him, our hero killed him, fought in battle, right, and killed him. And then the monument built on him, and he made a decree that everybody who goes on horseback or vehicle, they have to stop there and pay respect to this monument where the Elara was buried or cremated. Elara, this Tamil king. Now this is Tamil king's son going on a, he ruled for several years, and king was this Elara's, Tamil king's son, going on a vehicle and killing this cow. Killing this cow. And what does his father do? Father had a justice bell. He was a very just king, this Tamil king. Very just king. He had during his reign, he had installed a just bell. Anybody who had faced some injustice could come and ring the bell. Very interesting situation. It is all that is given in our Sinhala, the chronicle. And so now this cow, whether the cow did or not, metaphorically, here ringing the bell. And there's also a little bird. A bird was also had problems. Here a bird here. It's not probably clear. Bird, here. There's a bird here making a complaint. So anybody could go and make a complaint. And this Elara I'm not very happy with what he did. The Tamil king, he killed his son. He got the same horse to kill the son as retaliation, you see. Anyway, so, interesting historically, how the hero king who killed the Tamil king in battle paid respect to him, to his rival. So I now go on to, that was the 3rd century BC and the 2nd century BC. Now I go to the 12th and 13th centuries. I'm skipping because so much detail. I'm sure you will get bored. I'm putting all this, the 3-4 countries, what I have written, so many pages, many pages. And there are 4 monasteries where Sinhalese monks lived and taught. Incidentally, this has never been given this has not been recorded. So for the first time I recorded it. And of course I had a very good person to help me, the former Commissioner of Archaeology, my good friend. I'm so grateful to him. And I went all around Pagan, and visited these monasteries where the Sinhalese monks lived and taught 12th and 13th centuries. And these are the remains of these structures. Sinbao Monastery, again where the Sinhala monks lived, is a large monastery where the Sinhala monks lived. Still they are 13th century, quite good. This is another side of the same monastery, Sinbao Monastery. See, quite good. And this is another monastery. It's called Buddharansi, name of the Sinhala monk. The monastery is named after the name of the Sinhala monk. And this is 2 Thamani monasteries, the name Thamani. The Sinhalese people, Sri Lankans, were also known by this word during that time, Thamani. They referred to Thamani. I asked for the meaning, they don't know the meaning. They refer to Thamani complex, Thamani. And it's a large, about 100 monks could stay there inside. I have a lot of inside pictures. About 100 monks could stay. So these Buddhist, the Sri Lankan monks stayed in these monasteries, especially 13th, 14th centuries, and taught the Myanmar monks. And so now I come to the, fast forwarding, I come to the 15th century. King Dhammacheti of Bago sent 22 senior monks to Sri Lanka and they received higher ordination under Mahathera Vidagama. On return, the king had an ordination hall called Kalyani Sima. Kalyani is the name of the river where they got the ordination, because usually they have to also have a water place where the ordination is done. So the Kalyani River, famous river. To get from Kandy to Colombo, you got to pass that place. Sima is the boundary, because of that is the ordination boundary. You have to have a boundary to mark the boundary before an ordination takes place. So these monks, 22 monks from Sri Lanka, from Myanmar, received their higher ordination and were on the Kalyani River. And the king, Dhammacheti, called this Kalyani Sima, because named after the river where the monks received ordination. And a total of 15,666 bhikkhus received ordination. All over Myanmar, he constructed ordination halls for all these monks to get reordination. They were ordained monks, but that was the fashion of the day. That was the fashion, not of the day, all the time. Wherever the monks get ordained, they get reordained under Sinhala monks, because Sri Lanka was the acknowledged holy land, so to say, of Theravada Buddhism. So this is the Kalyani Sima in Pegu or Bago. So a group of monks went to Amarapura. Amarapura is another city in Myanmar. Another group of monks went to Amarapura, get ordination, because they had some of those people who had Thailand, who had ordination before this in Thailand, again in the 17th century. They had some problem. They were not recognized. So they went to Amarapura city in Myanmar, and they got the higher ordination and came back to Sri Lanka. And of course they got the under the patronage of the king then, the Myanmar king, and headed by Myanmar Sangaraja, Jnanabhivansa, at the Suvarna Guha Sima. It is there, very much there in Bago Suvarna Guha Sima. It's fairly well preserved. So this is the formation of the Amarapura, because they got their reordination from Amarapura, and they were known as Amarapura sect. Another sect from Myanmar called Ramanya. This monk from Sri Lanka again wanted to get higher ordination. He was not happy with in Kandy with the Siamese group, the way he got higher ordination, the way they were treated, and so they left for Myanmar, and they got ordination in 1861, and from this monk Munivar of Ratarpur Vihar in Mandalay. Mandalay is quite a well-known city, and under the patronage of this King Mendung in Mandalay. And then this sect is called Ramanya, another sect. So we have now two sects from Myanmar, Ramanya, Amarapura and Ramanya. And after this I come to the earlier one, in the 17th century, what we got back. See, we are getting back now. We are getting back from what we gave to Myanmar and Thailand. What we gave, the higher ordination, we are getting back. When we are in trouble, we got back. Special contribution by the lineages from Myanmar. More than the Thai lineage, Siam lineage, these monks contributed a great deal. That is because in the south, they were located in the southern province of Sri Lanka. Southern province is better known for educational facilities and educational expertise, and not so much the Kandy area, and that is quite also well known. So these monks paved the way for the development of the international Buddhist movement in the late 19th and 20th century, and not only that, later in the international movement, but the local revival of the local literature, local everything, local knowledge, revival of local knowledge. What we lost, we got back, including the books from Myanmar. So this is the Cambodia I am coming to now. Cambodia. And before I come to Cambodia, Nakhon Samarat, I'm sorry, there should be a T there, Tamarat in Malay Peninsula. And Sri Lankan Buddhism was known in Nakhon Tamarat. Sri Lankan monks went to Nakhon Tamarat, is that Malay Peninsula over there on Thailand, top of Thailand. And so shortened form, I have put it at NST and established the sasana in there. Monks from NST also went to Sri Lanka and studied and received higher ordination. Now, there are 7 sites. I have been to all the 7 sites, all Sri Lankan style chetis. This is going back to the 12th century. So one of the earliest in the region now, chetis in Southeast Asia. Here, I'm putting only one, and here too, there are 7 sites. What Mahatat? Mahatat means the great relic. Sri Lankan Buddhism came to Cambodia in the 12th century from Nakhon Tamarat. So, 12th century. Stone stupa in the central tower of Prasat Prakhan, built by Jayavarman VII in the 12th century in honor of his dead fathers in Sri Lankan style. Very small stupa. This stupa is reminiscent of contemporary stupa style in Sri Lanka of the Polonnaruwa period. That is now our second capital after the 12th century. After the Cholas devastated and Parakrambahu, the first, the king in the 12th century, revived Buddhism in Sri Lanka, and so this is the second capital called Polonnaruwa, second capital. So this is the stupa which is inside Prasad Prakhan. If you go to Cambodia, you should go and take a look. It's a very small stupa, but just like a Sri Lankan Kirivihara, just like this. It's modeled after this. Because the 12th century, it is the period where the lots and lots of monks were found in Cambodia and all over the place. Only after the 12th century, after 11th and 12th century. 11th and 12th century, Myanmar, Cambodia, etc. So, this is our king Parakrambahu I in the 12th century, established close relations with Burma and Cambodia after chasing away the Chola kings. And Burmese kings, suspecting Sri Lankan consolidating trade contacts with China through Cambodia, seized Sri Lankan envoys. There's a big fight on. Because Sri Lankan king had connections with Cambodia, and of course up to China. China was an emerging power at the time, emerging great power at the time. And so the Burmese king, suspected of having connections with China, because China was a huge power, emerging power, and the Burmese king seized our Sri Lankan envoys, whom the king had sent. Once again, the Burmese captured a Sinhalese princess sent to Cambodia, probably as bride to Jayavarman VII. Jayavarman VII was the king, was the most powerful king in the kingdom of Cambodia in the 12th century. He has a great, his Sanskrit. I have read all the stuff during that time, and I have written about it, particularly like he had two wives, and one wife was a teacher at the university, and there were 3 universities, and what she has composed, 100 poems. I had translated that into English. Beautiful. And in Sanskrit poems, Sanskrit onomatopoeic, using all those tunes, etc. Beautiful. And some of these poems some of them really are much better than some of the Sanskrit poems. So when the Burmese king did this, so must have been, because apparently several others, I'm not quoting everything, a Burmese king went to Sri Lanka to marry a princess. He married there and went back to Burma. It is not recorded in our thing, but Burmese records speak about that, describe that. So our king, when this happened, our king in retaliation, he raided several ports of Burma, and this has been confirmed by Sri Lankan inscriptions. So both ways this is confirmed by Sri Lanka and Cambodian records. So there was a Cambodian prince, that is again Jayavarman VII's son, this great king, Jayavarman VII's son, Tamalinda. He son of Cambodian king, was in Sri Lanka with 4 other monks, mastered the Tripitaka, the canon, and returned to Burma and formed Sinhala sect in the 12th century. They called it the Sinhala Sangha, Sihala Sangha in Pali, Sihala Sangha in the 12th century. Sihala means Sinhala. our community, the Sri Lankan community. Cambodian prince became king of Sri Lanka. So he did know one of the other, Kirtisrini Sankamalla, 12th century. He married a Sinhala princess. And he has been identified, he came from Singburi, near Lopburi of the Dwaravati kingdom. That is, Thailand was not there at the time. Thailand was coming along, but Dwaravati kingdom, the Mon kingdom. And he came from there, and so many, he is very well known for the largest number of inscriptions by a single king is by him. Largest number of inscriptions by one single king is by him. He talks very, very, what shall I say, kind of very flowery language, used it. It was flowery language at the time, and so he's quite well known for that. And also inscription, there's in one of the inscriptions it says Kamboja Vasala, that is a gateway to a Cambodian street in Polonnaruwa in the 12th century. And Kamboja Vasala, there's a gate, very well documented in our histories. This indicates that there was a special residential quarter for Cambodians, for the Khmer Cambodian monks, ambassadors, and or maybe even soldiers. This is this king, this Cambodian, born in Cambodia, Mon Cambodia, Dwaravati region, in central Thailand region at the time. And that was Cambodia at the time, under the Mons. And he went to Sri Lanka and he became the king of Sri Lanka. It could well be even other evidence like he speaks a lot about himself. No other king speaks about oneself. So he had he had to kind of a little inferiority complex, so to say, to establish himself as his rights as a king. So they decided, inscription states that King Nisankamalla bestowed on Cambodians gold, cloth, etc., and commanded them to stop catching birds, not to catch birds. The inscription has been wrongly interpreted by some historians that the Cambodian residents sold birds to supplement their wages because they were not aware that actually our historian, our recent greatest historian we have had, Dr. Saranath Parvetaram, self-made historian. He was the greatest man in the recent years and the last 20, 30, 40 years. He misinterpreted this because he had not been to Cambodia. I understood this inscription only after I went to Cambodia. Why? I saw how the Cambodians kill birds and eat. Even what they see on the cage. In the restaurants you have birds on the cage and you say, here, I want this bird, that bird. But you walk on the road, you see people killing even the moths who come to the light. That also they kill and eat. So all kinds of birds Cambodians eat. So until I went to Cambodia, I did not realize why this king did that. The king, in order to stop this bad habit, so-called un-Buddhist habit, had given money for the people to stop killing birds. So the king may have been embarrassed with this un-Buddhist habit and tried to stop it. Actually, I wrote about it after I went to Cambodia, and only I realized what is all this. Why did King Nisankamalla stop people from killing birds? Because they were eating. They were killing birds not for anything else, not for the fun, but to eat. So, Cambodian influence on Sri Lanka art and architecture. So, we have had a lot of influence from the other way around. Satmahal Prasada, that is seven stories without doors or windows in a pyramid structure similar to the Cambodian prasads. You will see a picture later. Podgul Vihara with a symmetrical plan closely resembles this plan of the Eastern Mebor. And another one called Prerup. Similarities, 3 buildings, 3 tiers arrangements, and symmetrical placing of the 5 monuments on the uppermost tiers. Archaeologist Bell, a British archaeologist we had during the British period, suggested that Podgul Vihara was built to mark the arrival of the Cambodians, because it's very marked the arrival of Cambodians during that time, the 12th century. See the Satmahal Prasad of Sri Lanka. And you can't enter that. It's meaning that there's nothing inside. Inside, 7 tiers, and here is the prasads in Angkor, Cambodia. There also that. You can't go inside, it's only from outside you can see. And here also you get something similar in Thailand. So I have taken that also to show that the influence they had. So, Cambodian influence on Sri Lanka art and architecture again. That is one. This one, Palace of Yapahua, the 14th century, capital of Sri Lanka, can be accessed by 3 flights of steps separated by terraces. You will see the picture. Peru and Bakang temples, 9th and 10th centuries, in Angkor are similar and have axial staircases with seated stone lions flanking each flight. The lions found in Yapahua strongly resemble the Khmer style. This is our Sri Lankan Yapahua. Stages, steps, flights, and each flight on top there's a lion. This is the Nam Pakang in Cambodia. Oh my goodness, when you compare, it's like comparing like a needle with a big building. It's so huge, the Cambodian one. Cambodian one is so huge. So huge. So probably this was built by the Cambodians who are in Sri Lanka, or rather influenced by the Cambodians. It's a huge place. Huge place. And this is the Sri Lankan one, very small. This is a lion in Sri Lanka, similar to Cambodian lion. And this is the lion in Cambodia, fairly similar. Lion in Cambodia. Then Cambodian monks, I'm trying to finish the Cambodian part. The 15th century, 8 monks from Cambodia, 25 monks from Chiang Mai, and 6 Burmese monks went to Sri Lanka, studied the Tripitaka, the canon, and received Upasampada under the Sangharaja of Sri Lanka. On their return, Sinhala Upasampada was introduced to the Shaman, Lao, Ayodhya, and Kamboja kingdoms, or to the entire region by the 15th century. Entire region, and they worked together, all these countries. Upasampada is the main thing, Sri Lankan attraction as Buddhism. You see, that type of Upasampada, I mean higher ordination, which means a lot for Buddhism, for Buddhist monks. Right? You get the Upasampada right way. That's why I earlier said reordination. Sri Lankan monks held in high esteem by the 15th century in Cambodia, in Phnom Penh. I think I mentioned I lived 10 years in Cambodia. And Sri Lankan monks had resided in Cambodia in the 15th century. The 5 wats built in Phnom Penh by King Panyayut are all associated with Sri Lankan monks. Asajita Mahathera, Buddhaghosa Mahathera were among them. Then after Buddhaghosa Thera passed away, king built a temple in his honor and named it Wat Buddhaghosa Cham. So by 15th century, it was very well established. So I did not, when I went there, I did not have to do much work about Sri Lanka because they knew, of course. Even Laos is very, in a way, a new country coming out type of thing, a very poor country. But when you say Sri Lanka, in fact in Laos, they all worshipped me, knelt down, kneeling down, because meeting a Sri Lankan when I met long time ago. Maybe some of them were meeting the first Sri Lankan. So they were here, they see for the first time, long time ago. For the first time seeing a Sri Lanka, so they were kneeling down and worshipping me, men, women type of thing, you see, because it's a respect for the religion. So today the main Sangaraja's temple, that was my office at the beginning, Buddhist Institute office. And so this was built in the 15th century on the hill of Bodhilom to enshrine the eyebrows of Asajita Thera I referred to earlier, in the earlier slide, to commemorate him. From that time, Buddhism was known as the Bodhilom was known as Wat Unnalom, today's monastery. Why Unnalom? Urnaloma, eyebrows. Because the eyebrows were enshrined in the eyebrows, the monks, Sri Lankan monks, eyebrows were enshrined in that temple. Today the Sangaraja resides there. And there's also Wat Koch associated with Sri Lanka. I said 5 Wats, 5 viharas, 5 monasteries. Then Wat Piam Plom housed a golden Buddha statue brought from Sri Lanka. And King Panyayat carried this statue in a procession, Wat Prayer Plom, and placed it in Wat Unnalom. So, all in the 15th century this was. And Wat Lanka, one. The other one called Wat Lanka, named after Lanka. By the 15th century, Sri Lanka, not Sri Lanka was used in some parts of Southeast Asia. So it became the center of scholarship, was the principal library of the Tripitaka canon, and Sri Lankan monks gave training there to the monks and laity. Later the Wat was repaired by Queen Kosamak and was renamed Wat Kosamak. But the people continued to use the term Wat Lanka. They continued. Still it is called Wat Lanka. It's a very famous, if you go to Phnom Penh, you can't miss that. And the Sangaraja's temple. Then I come to Thai Sri Lanka links. Please, if you are tired of listening, please ask.
Be sure to leave time for questions.
Okay, fine.
Discussion.
So we got earliest relations with Thailand. There was no Thailand at the time. It was called Dwaravati, the central part of Thailand. Dwaravati, central part of Thailand. Very much it was a Mon state. And citizens lived in Dwaravati Mon kingdom as a community. A Mon inscription in Saraburi province, dated 550 to 650, mentions Kamun Anuradhapura Koak, that is town people from Anuradhapura. So Anuradhapura people, I mentioned, Sri Lanka first capital was Anuradhapura from about the 6th century BC, going back not even before, now there is Anuradha mentioned even in the 8th century. So it has nothing to do with Buddhism, Anuradha. And so this is Mon. In fact, I had to learn, I know nothing of Mon, but I had to translate that Mon thing for that book I mentioned about the Mahavasa thing. All writing, all the script is Mon. There's nobody from Burma, a student from Myanmar here, student in the center? No, student. Otherwise, I want to tap his this thing from Mon. Then Sri Lankans introduced a school of sculpture into Thailand during the early period. 5th century Buddha image found in Korat and they guided some of the local artists. Buddha images found in Dwaravati were inspired by Anuradhapura sculpture, which were influenced by Amaravati sculpture. Not me saying this, Basalier spoke a lot about this. Sedis also has touched on that. So, Buddha images in Dwaravati were inspired by Anuradhapura because Anuradhapura was, sculpture was inspired by Amaravati. So, this was a later period that went to this, Anuradhapura, from Anuradhapura, not so much from Amaravati. This is the Buddha image from Korat, the Sri Lankan, except for the, we don't have this head that way. That is their own style. Thai style, Dwaravati style, the robe style is very Sri Lankan. This is verses from Sri Lankan Pali text written in the 4th century in Sri Lanka called Tela Kataha Gatha. That is a story of very Sri Lankan story written in the 4th century and where a princess, our hero, Gamini's, Guttagamini's mother, what happened in the 2nd century was written, this story was written in verse form, in the verses in the 4th century, and where this princess was sent, there was a misunderstanding that this princess had a connection as a relationship with a monk, and so this monk was burnt in hot oil. Thela means oil. Thela Kataha Gatha. So, four verses from this story was found in 761 in this province, Prachinburi in Thailand. Only 4 verses or something. And they were identified by a colleague of mine. And so that means this story was known in the order, the Tela Kataha Gatha, the text was known in, at least in that part of Thailand, Prachinburi. Then the Sihinga Buddha image from Sri Lanka. Sihinga means, here is a Sinhala, the word, old word for Sri Lanka. Sihinga, 13th century. King of Siridhamma Nagara, present day Nakhon Si Thammarat, that Malay peninsula. His name was Chandrabhanu. He invaded Sri Lanka to capture this, to take this Buddha image. This king invaded Sri Lanka. And of course, he could not get it. He invaded but could not get the image. Later, he sort of ganged up with the King Ram Kamheng, the first Thai king, historical king, got the image gifted by King of Sri Lanka by peaceful means. Earlier one tried by invading, this by peaceful means. Then after getting the image, they had a huge problem. Because this Buddha image, what I would call images, relics, Bodhi trees, they were all tools for political legitimation. That's my analysis. They were used as political aspects of political legitimation, whatever way they wanted to. And so, after getting the image, and these local rulers wanted to own the image because this image signified sovereignty, the right to rule. The right to rule. Like the tooth relic in Sri Lanka signifies the right to rule. Whoever the kingdom, they have to take the tooth relic, the king has to will take it along with to his capital. So this is the Buddha image. This is the Buddha image. If not for the head, the image is very Sinhalese type. Very Sinhalese type. I have got an image here. I think yes. When you see that image, you will see that this was made in Sri Lanka. This image, except for the head. So it's very similar to the Buddha image. And this is two other images of the same thing is a little different with the gesture. The mudra is different. Okay, now, so what happened was that because of these rulers, kingdoms, they were fighting for this image, they made some copies, 2 copies, and now they are in Bangkok and Chiang Mai and NST. And no one knows where the original one is. Ram Kamheng invites Sri Lankan monks to Sukhothai. According to an inscription of 1292, king received a forest-dwelling Sri Lankan monk from Nakhon Si Thammarat and built for him the Lanka Rama. The name says that. Now it is called Wat Sapan Hin. The king and royal family observed precepts during the Vasa season, and the cut-in ceremony lasted a month, the usual thing. So I mentioned that earlier, the establishment of the Sihala Sangha. Thamalinda, son of the Cambodian king, and Burmese, they went to Sri Lanka, spent 10 years and went back to Burma, and they established a Sihala Sangha. Now you get this in Thailand, Sukhothai, King Lothai, son of Ram Kamheng, Hang. Like in Sinhala, we have the umlaut for a. So this umlaut, Ram Kamheng, H-A-E-N-G. Have I written the spelling? No, it should be H-A-E-N-G. My spelling is wrong here. Ram Kamheng should be. That is our umlaut. And requested Udumbara Mahasami, who had arrived in Pego, to send a monk to perform Upasampada. So the Udumbara Mahasami, the Sri Lankan monk, he did not go himself. He sent Sumana, the monk Sumana, who had received Upasampada from him. Sumana there established the Sihala Sangha sect in Sukhothai. Now the Sinhala sect established in Sukhothai. This is the 14th century. So in Chiang Mai, King Kilana in the 14th century again, Nabbisapura, that is Chiang Mai, in northeast Thailand, also requested this Mahasami to send a monk. Udumbara sent Sukhothai monk Anandatera, another monk, who had got ordination under him. This is the Prasing Tripitaka Library in Chiang Mai, Sinhala Sangha at Wat Suandok. Thera Sumana went to Chiang Mai and established the Sinhala Sangha at Pupparama Monastery, like Sanskrit Pushparama, present day Wat Suandok, and special built for him by the king. This is Wat Suandok, Chiang Mai, of course, repainted and redone. Otherwise, this is 15th century, yes, and 14th century. And yes, and this again, Sumanatere established the Sihala Sangha sect in Sukhothai here, and he established a special monastery called Wat Pa Mamuang Mango Grove. This is still the pillars are there. It's a recent photograph which I took about 3-4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. King built Wat Umang for Sri Lankan monks in Chiang Mai. King Kilana built an artificial cave, Wat Umang. Umang means a cave, Umaga, in Chiang Mai to house the visiting monks from Sri Lanka. The monks are visiting. This is This is a photograph which I took about 2 years ago. Sinhala, this Wattumang in Chiang Mai. And in Lampung, Therusuman again, Sinhala Sangha was established in Haripunja, modern Lampung. It's called Haripunja at the time. Then King Kelana also built Wat Prayun there for the Therusuman. And this is in Sajjanalaya, and that it is called now Suwankalok. And you will see the Sinhala Sangha as well as the elephants all round. I think I'll be discussing that later. Elephants all round. Then Buddha relics and Bodhi shoots from Sri Lanka, all enshrined, hundreds of places enshrined, Bodhi shoots and Buddha relics, as I mentioned, as a tool of political legitimation. A king gets a relic, so he enshrines it. They receive temporary ordination from the Sangha-Raja. They continue as patrons of Sinhala Sangha in Sukhothai, and ministers received with great celebrations at Mahasami Sangha-Raja Medankara, I referred to earlier. King offered him a specially built monastery, received Lankan Sangha-Raja, under Sangha-Raja at the end. The Thai, now a special visitor, a nephew of Ram Kamheng, first historical king. His nephew went to Sri Lanka. He was called Sri Sata, Sri Shraddha, and visited Sri Lanka. He has written his own inscriptions, 3 inscriptions. So he stayed at Gampala and Mahiyangana. These are towns, small towns. Gampala was also a place of a kingdom. And Mahiyangana, for 10 years, he received the title of Mahasami. That's also usual. After getting the ordination, you get the same title of your teacher. And he also visited Samantakota. That is another thing. All these visitors from Thailand, Cambodia, who in the past, who went there, I don't know, now they can't do all that. And they all had gone to all these places. Samantakota, climbing that mountain peak with the footprint, so-called Buddha's footprint. And Sisata takes back now. Sisata, after having spent 10 years in Sri Lanka, he restored in Sri Lanka the Mahatupa. Mahatupa is our great stupa, Ruanmalisaya, Mahavihara, and the Mahiyangana. They had gone into decline. And he also took back a Kesa Dhatu and a Giva Dhatu to Sukhothai. So some of these relics. So Sri Lanka. Even in Cambodia, when I first went about, how many years ago? Maybe in end of 90s or something, they were asking me whether I could get a Buddha relic, get them a relic. So Sri Lanka known for relics, you see. So yes, the tooth relic performed miracles for 3 months. Anyway, so it is the in fact a deputy prime minister in Thailand, when I gave a lecture, he said he also did the same thing. He went to this thing and he dedicated himself to the tooth relic, you see. That is what some very ardent Buddhist religious Thais and Cambodians do. So this Sisata, the nephew, king's nephew, who spent 10 years in Sri Lanka, he took craftsmen back to Sukhothai and settled them in 5 villages. And he took also he built chetis with Mahabodhi shoots and all that from Anuradhapura, founded a footprint. Yeah. And Sisata got the Sri Lankan craftsmen to add the stucco motifs to the Mahatat in Sukhothai. Mahatat, that is the great relic, the main temple. These stucco motifs of Makaras were based on designs of Lankatilaka temple, built in 1342. The king of Sri Lanka, yes, in this 14th century, Look at this, Sri Lankan style stucco makara arch at Wat Mahatat in Sukhothai. Thank you very much. This is the makara thing in Mahatat in Sukhothai. But how beautiful it is. Look at our makara toran, our makara, Lankatilaka. So apparently they copied this, but they have done a much better job. So, whether Sri Lankan craftsmen or Thai craftsmen, they have done a much better job. So this the stucco elephants, because all over you get elephants at the base in Sri Lankan temples. So this was the Lankatilaka temple, and this was copied. Bell-shaped stupas and standing elephants inspired by Sri Lanka. Large bell-shaped stupas and the standing elephants emerging from niches in Sukhothai, inspired by the Gampala Lankatilaka temple and Gadladini, two temples, not too far from each other. And you see the elephants at the base, all these Wat Changlom, elephants at the base, you see. Yeah. And see this type of stucco elephants, what Chedi he sung in Sukhothai or laterite. Yeah. And this is again a famous Wat Mangkon in Sukhothai, also elephants, some are broken. This again, shaped stupas in Sukhothai, Wat Pra Pai Luang, elephants you can see, Wat Si Pichit, again the elephants around the base. This is fairly clear. Wat Sorasak, elephants around the, and white elephants. White elephants. And still you find white elephants in Thailand, also in Myanmar. In Myanmar especially, you see white elephants. And so has been shown to be the most closely resembling, that is this one, versatile, elephants all around the base. Again, Wat Changlom, yes, elephants around the base, yes, elephant, a close-up, see Sachanalai. Again in Sachanalai is broken, and Sinhala style is Sachanalai, the Cheti, and the architecture and sculpture transformed, and 14th century, and Thai monks studied and received high ordination in Sri Lanka in the 14th century, Ayutthaya. And Mahatera Dhammakirti Mahasami returned to Ayutthaya 14th century, and he composed Saddhamma Sangha, History of Buddhism in Sri Lanka. And they contributed a lot, and we got them back. When we lost everything, we got them, as I mentioned before, we got the books, we got everything from them. Thailand, and mainly from Thailand at the first instance. More Thai monks study and receive Upasampada, Bodhya, and with 6 Mon monks and Ramanya country, Upasampada, especially, as I said earlier, high ordination was the attraction, you see, for the Buddhist monks. Then, as I mentioned, there are all this customary pilgrimage to various places, to Trelikin Kandy, in the Samantakota, and we have these 16 sacred shrines of Sri Lanka. Even I have not been to all the 16. And so they used to go, I don't know whether it was a metaphorical thing or not, it's recorded. Then monks accompanied Thai monks to Ayutthaya, or Sri Lankan. When they returned to Ayutthaya with precious relics, accompanied by 2 senior Sinhala monks named Vikramabahu and Uttamapanya. Sri Lankan monks gave Upasampada to the Thai monks in the 15th century, Wat Sihalaram became the first center of Pali studies. That is, it is called now Wat Chedi Chet Yod, 15th century. It was earlier called, at the time, was called Sihalaram. Sihala, as I mentioned earlier, was so called because King Tilokaraja planted a Bodhi branch brought from Sri Lanka in 1455. The Bodhi tree stands up to now. This is the Bodhi tree, still. But there is also a Mahabodhi from India on top, the style, the Bodhi tree you can see, and the Cheti, Sri Lankan type of Cheti. What Sihalarams, Sinhala monastery, which that means. And this king Tilokaraja had a Sri Lankan general, Sinhala Gotta. It says Sinhala Gotra, that is Sinhala clan. So this general rebuilt the shrine called Rajakota in Chiang Mai. Can you guess? I don't know. Somebody said when I made this presentation in probably a long time ago, our ambassador in Sri Lankan ambassador there said, he had been in Thailand and Japan and all these places. He said, yes, it could well be. Sri Lankan became a general because the Thais, Thai men, I don't know how, he said, are very, Thai men are not that, what is the word, that manly, so-called, man, physically, kind of thing. Maybe he became a general because he wanted that, the king wanted that kind of person. So this Wat Sihalaram, the the 8th Buddhist Council was held. That is very significant, and it became kind of a center for literature and religion, etc., Buddhist literature. So this council gave rise to great revival of Pali literature and learning in northern Thailand.
So, we're going to need to be out of here by 5 o'clock.
Okay, what time is it now? I don't have a clock. Now, how many? 10 to 5? Oh my goodness. Okay, so I can, now I'm finishing. I did not have a clock. So, now, Palitera, the last thing, getting higher ordination in Sri Lanka, this Laos. And the Laos monk, Cambodian advisors, there were Cambodian advisors, Sri Lankan advisors in Cambodia. The Cambodian king sent these advisors to Laos when the daughter was given in marriage to a Laotian prince. So the Sinhala monk became the Sangaraja, first Sangaraja in Laos. And very significant is this palladium in Laos is called Prabang, Buddha image. And it would not have been, ever been built in Sri Lanka, but it was a gift from a Sri Lankan king. It's the same thing, Lanka Bodhi Vihara, and this is again a Sri Lankan type. Conclusion, I am finishing. Sri Lanka Buddhism served as a tool for political legitimation of Southeast Asian countries. I will quickly, by the 16th century, because of the colonial destruction, Buddhist structures had declined, so Buddhist Sangha was the lowest step. Sasana in Sri Lanka was restored due to the intense dedication of monks from Thailand, Myanmar and Sri Lankan monks. Royal patronage of Thailand, Myanmar monks helped to restore the Sasana. Thailand, Myanmar and Sri Lanka have had a fruitful and warm relationship in many spheres, in religion, art, literature and architecture. They were mutually inspiring. The introduction of the 3 sects gave this Ramanya, Siam, Ramanya, Amarapura, gave rise the sects introduced from these countries to a generation of scholar monks and prepared the cultural background for Sri Lankan political independence and its cultural reassertion. This Renaissance helped initiate the global international Buddhist movement begun in the 19th century in Sri Lanka. Thank you.